The streets of Gaza City were gripped with fear and uncertainty. On May 14, 2025, the Israeli military issued chilling evacuation orders for schools and a major hospital in the Ramal neighborhood. This densely populated area was now deemed a potential target. Among the buildings slated for evacuation was the Shifa Hospital, the largest medical facility in the Gaza Strip. This ominous development signaled a terrifying escalation in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. The evacuation orders were not merely a logistical maneuver, they were a stark reminder of the vulnerability of civilians trapped in the crossfire. The residents of Ramal faced an impossible choice: heed the evacuation warnings and risk leaving behind their homes and belongings, or stay put and face the potential of being caught in the line of fire. The streets were flooded with families fleeing their homes, carrying whatever possessions they could salvage. As the sun began to set on Gaza City, casting long shadows over the fleeing crowds, a sense of foreboding settled over the city. The evacuation orders were a grim prelude to what would become a night of unimaginable terror. The southern city of Khan Yunis bore the brunt of the Israeli offensive that night. As darkness fell, wave after wave of airstrikes rained down on the city, turning the night sky into a terrifying spectacle of fire and destruction. The relentless Hong-Ming of explosions shook the ground, reducing buildings to rubble and trapping families under the debris. One of the hardest-hit areas was the Nasser Hospital, a beacon of hope in a city ravaged by war. An Associated Press cameraman on the ground counted at least 10 separate airstrikes in the vicinity of the hospital. The hospital morgue, overwhelmed by the sheer number of casualties, confirmed at least 54 dead. Among the victims was Hassan Samour, a respected journalist for Al Arabi TV. He was killed alongside 11 members of his family in one of the deadliest strikes of the night. The death toll continued to climb with each passing hour, painting a grim picture of a humanitarian crisis spiraling out of control. In the wake of the devastating attacks on Khan Yunis, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remained defiant, vowing to escalate the offensive against Hamas. With a chilling resolve, he declared that Israeli forces were prepared to enter Gaza with great strength to dismantle Hamas and eradicate the perceived threat to Israeli security. Netanyahu's hardline stance was met with international condemnation, but the Israeli government appeared unfazed. The blockade imposed on Gaza on March 2, 2025 remained firmly in place, effectively cutting off the flow of essential goods and humanitarian aid into the besieged enclave. This act of collective punishment had plunged Gaza's already vulnerable population into a humanitarian crisis of catastrophic proportions. Hospitals struggled to function with dwindling supplies, and families were forced to make do with meager rations. The international community's calls to lift the blockade fell on deaf ears as Netanyahu doubled down, prioritizing what he deemed the security of Israel over the lives of Palestinian civilians. The situation in Gaza was rapidly deteriorating, and the international community seemed powerless to stop it. The relentless Israeli offensive and the suffocating blockade had plunged Gaza into a humanitarian catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. The healthcare system, already on the brink of collapse, was brought to its knees. Hospitals, overwhelmed with casualties and starved of essential medical supplies, resembled war zones more than places of healing. The European hospital in Khan Yunis, Gaza's only cancer treatment facility, was forced to shut down after being severely damaged in Israeli airstrikes. Patients, many of them critically ill, were evacuated in the dead of night, their chances of survival hanging precariously in the balance. The healthcare crisis was compounded by a growing food crisis. The United Nations estimated that nearly 500,000 Palestinians in Gaza were facing starvation, while another million were struggling to get enough to eat. The World Food Programme warned of a looming famine if the blockade continued, a stark reminder of the human cost of the ongoing conflict. Section 5. The World Reacts: Condemnation and Inaction. The unfolding tragedy in Gaza was met with a chorus of condemnation from the international community. Human rights organizations, world leaders, and international bodies denounced the Israeli offensive and called for an immediate ceasefire. However, these pleas seemed to fall on deaf ears as the violence continued unabated. Human Rights Watch, in a scathing statement, accused Israel of committing war crimes. They argued that the indiscriminate bombing of civilian areas, the targeting of hospitals, and the blockade amounted to collective punishment, and could potentially constitute crimes against humanity. U.S. President Donald Trump, on a visit to Gulf states, faced mounting pressure to intervene and broker a ceasefire. However, his administration's unwavering support for Israel made any meaningful intervention unlikely. The international community's response to the Gaza crisis exposed a stark reality. While the world watched in horror, concrete action to stop the bloodshed remained elusive. Section 6. Voices from the Rubble. Personal stories of loss and resilience. Amid the statistics and geopolitical analyses, it was crucial to remember the human faces of the Gaza crisis. Behind every casualty figure, every bombed-out building, and every desperate plea for help lay a story of individual loss, resilience, and the indomitable spirit of the human will to survive. One such story was that of Hadi Mokbel, a resident of Jabalia, a neighborhood in northern Gaza. Hadi lost several relatives in an airstrike that reduced his family home to rubble. Standing amidst the wreckage, clutching a photo of his loved ones, Hadi's grief was palpable. Yet, even in his darkest hour, he spoke of hope, and the unwavering belief that one day, peace would prevail. Another story was that of Fatima, a young doctor at Shifa Hospital. Fatima's story was a testament to the unwavering dedication of healthcare workers in Gaza, who risked their lives daily to provide care in the most challenging of circumstances. Section 7. Echoes of Genocide, Accusations and International Law. As the death toll mounted and the humanitarian crisis deepened, accusations of genocide against Israel began to surface on the international stage. Human rights groups and legal experts argued that Israel's actions in Gaza, particularly the blockade and the disproportionate use of force, met the legal definition of genocide as outlined in the 1948 Genocide Convention. The convention defines genocide as acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. Critics argued that Israel's policies aimed at isolating and subjugating the Palestinian population in Gaza demonstrated a clear intent to inflict conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction. Israel vehemently denied these accusations, maintaining that its actions were purely defensive and aimed at neutralizing the threat posed by Hamas. The debate over the applicability of the Genocide Convention to the Gaza situation was complex and fraught with legal and political ramifications. Section 8. The Uncertain Future, a Glimmer of Hope for Peace. As the dust settled on another round of violence, the future of Gaza remained precariously uncertain. The cycle of violence, deeply ingrained in the fabric of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, seemed tragically resistant to any lasting solution. The international community, despite its condemnations and calls for restraint, had proven incapable of breaking the cycle. Yet even amidst the despair and destruction, there remained glimmers of hope. Grassroots peace initiatives, led by ordinary citizens on both sides of the divide, continued to work tirelessly to bridge the chasm of hatred and mistrust. These initiatives, though often overlooked in the headlines, represented the best hope for a future where Israelis and Palestinians could coexist in peace and security. The path to peace would be arduous and fraught with obstacles. It would require extraordinary courage, compassion, and a willingness to compromise from all parties involved. The future of Gaza remained uncertain, but the human spirit, with its innate capacity for hope and resilience, refused to be extinguished. Section 9. A Call to Action, Stand with Gaza. The unfolding tragedy in Gaza is not just another news cycle, it is a stark reminder of our shared humanity and our moral obligation to act in the face of injustice. The people of Gaza, subjected to unimaginable suffering, deserve more than just our sympathy. They deserve our solidarity and our action. Silence in the face of such suffering is complicity. We cannot stand idly by as innocent lives are lost, families are torn apart, and a generation of children is robbed of its future. We must raise our voices in unison, demanding an end to the violence, an end to the blockade, and a just and lasting peace for all. Here are some ways you can make a difference. Stay informed. Educate yourself and others about the situation in Gaza. Contact your elected officials. Demand that they take a stand against the human rights violations occurring in Gaza. Support humanitarian organizations. Donate to reputable organizations providing vital aid and support to the people of Gaza. Amplify Palestinian voices. Listen to and amplify Palestinian voices and narratives. Let us stand in solidarity with the people of Gaza and work towards a future where peace, justice, and human dignity prevail.